Hello, model railroaders. As I'm cutting my foam, I was able to get to Home Depot today, and I've started in on the gradient. I just thought I'd pass on a little bit of experience in cutting foam. As you know, by the mountain, I've cut a fair bit of it, and I've used both hot wire and blade and saw, toothed saw, to cut through the foam. So I just wanted to pass on a little bit of my hard-earned knowledge to make it easier for other people. One of the ideal things, and not everybody may afford this, but if you plan on doing a lot of foam work, a straight edge that's 8 foot long is very, very helpful. Now that could be a purpose straight edge like this one, and I believe it was somewhere around $50 Canadian at Home Depot, and it is the Empire Professional Cutting Guide. Now I find that works perfectly fine. The J channel over here, that's for steel studding, or even some steel stud work. Now this piece is 10 foot long, steel studding is 8 foot, but you can find something for $50 or less that's 8 foot or longer that should be fairly straight for you. Now, having some weight on the whatever you're using as your cutting guide to help hold it in place so you don't accidentally bump it out of alignment is also going to be very helpful for you. Myself, I've got that old block of steel, an old battery backup battery that's not holding a charge, but it's a nice heavy brick essentially. And then I've got some lead that was formed into a tube in a piece of angle bracket that was an extra from the bracketing that they use to support the garage doors. Whatever you can find that will work, hey, that's great. The cheaper you can do it, the better, the way I look at it. But it does come in very helpful. Now I've just cut my first 8 foot section of my run, or my gradient. Now the track, if I can reach behind me, the plan is, with it being 2 foot long, whether I go with cork road bed or not, I will make that decision, but there's just a little bit of trackage, so that gives me a little over the width of my rail that I can blend the scenery up against. Now I may just, whoops, I haven't cut all of the flange off that section yet. That's why it's not supporting itself upright. But you know, I could lay the track directly on there. Now I could use pins to spike it down in, but I would want to definitely go ahead and ballast it so that the glue can bond. I know no more nails in a caulking gun, and spreading that out with a putty knife will also, I've heard other people utilize that. So I've got some I picked up a while ago that I have not opened the can, so I'm going to give that a try. I may just go right down onto the foam with the track, since it's going to be a logging run anyway. It doesn't need to have the shaped ballast as part of it. Now, one of the things as I was cutting that I kind of made me decide to actually do this video is getting a straight cut is going to be fairly difficult unless you're careful. You're going to be tempted to use one of these breakable blade box knives. With a brand new blade, I believe you should get like almost 3 to 4 inches of cutting depth. And normally there's Olfa blades. However, and I'll try and do this carefully, as you can see, the blade is very flexible, and as you start cutting the foam, the blade is going to want to bend on you. So I strongly recommend you do not utilize these style of knives if you want a actual square cut in your foam. What I have used to great success is the Excel brand, at least that's what's local to me. So it's just your regular shanked X-Acto or hobby knife holder that will hold the long blade. And these blades are this one's a little sharp. I'm going to try and do it so you can actually see. There. You know, it will bend, but it's bending at the more at the joint than it is down the blade. So it's a lot more rigid than a box knife or retractable. I don't know what you exactly call it, but I'm going to call it a box knife for cutting cardboard. So the other tip, that foam will dull these blades. Now, personally, I try and follow the rule of, if I'm going to start a new project, I put a new blade in. Now, I can't remember how many blades are there. A package of 5 blades for $4. Now, I don't know how old that package is. However, you can be calling a buck a blade. So when do you change it out? Well, here's a good example of when to change the blade out. You can see the first bit of the cuts I was making along here are very smooth, and then as I get towards the bottom, you can see kind of the foam rolling over on itself. Well, that's the tip of the blade getting dull. So when you notice that resistance and the foam wanting to roll over on itself, I would recommend that that's the time where you change the blade out. So there are other ways of cutting the foam. Out of curiosity, this little section here of this lap joint, I tried using the vibro cutter, whatever you want to call it, using that blade. Now, I know that wouldn't do me my full 2-inch depth. However, it's very noisy, and you get all kinds of little tiny bits of foam strewn all over the place. So I thought, I'll give it a try, see how it is. It was very hard to keep a level cut because, of course, the motor part of the unit is quite heavy. And I went, no, it was an experiment. I don't care. On this little bit, I can always put some sandpaper down and smooth out any divots. But it was very difficult to keep a straight edge. I know it's kind of hard to see on the video, but there is a bump here, and then I was with the side of the unit, it was cutting into it there. So I'm just going to go ahead with the knife, that particular knife, and go ahead and clean that joint up, take off the lap at the edge there. Now, just to talk about the gradient itself, let me roll over here and grab the ruler. What I did, if you may not be able to see it, but right in front of the ruler edge, there's a little groove there. See if I can get the light to catch it just right. That's my 5-foot mark. Okay, so I went back in about here and made a mark and measured that as 5 inches, because we're starting out at a 5-inch height. So there's my 5 inches there. We know we want a 2-inch drop over 10 feet. So by measuring down 5 feet using a square, and I did that actually pretty much all the way up the board, because anything I do, I'm going to base it off of my previous cut, whether it's sloped or not. Like in this case, I've got a slope. So when I go do my measurement, the next one I'll cut, because I want the same slope, will essentially start off at whatever my last measurement is, and then go down so that I know at 10 feet. So I'm going in 2 feet, I'll measure to make sure that I'm starting at 2 inches. 3 inches, pardon me, 3 inches. And then I'll gradient that down. But in this case, by going down to 4 inches, if I can get it without the light shining on the ruler, going down to 4 inches at this point, keep the ruler steady, 4 inches at this point, then my other run for the last 3 feet automatically follow down, and I believe I'm somewhere around just under 3.5 inches at my 8-foot mark. So I'll just make sure that whatever I start on when I measure my next section, that the end, once I've got the guide in position, I'll just make sure that that is going to be fairly uniform to the height of that section. And then, you just have to measure twice before you start cutting. But before I cut my next section, I will, change out that blade to a new one, because it's not worth fighting the blade, because then it wants to start curving on you. Now, I don't know how accurate I am here as far as squareness goes. I don't know if we can get any light to show through or not, but I'm predominantly, there's a little bit of rock on it, but predominantly I'm square on that cut. It's just going to take practice going a 2-inch depth, and sandpaper on a block to dress it up a little bit will definitely take out any, or smooth out any divots or any side to side unsquareness. But I just wanted to throw those tips out there while I was physically performing the task, and that's pretty much what I'm working on as far as New Year's Eve, if you will. I want to cut my 2-foot thick section of foam up into all my gradients that I may need, and hopefully get this aspect of the logging run pushed along before I have to go back to work on Tuesday. So hopefully everybody has a happy and safe New Year's Eve, and we'll see you in 2018. Bye for now.